Hi, we'd like to thank you for tuning into the World Boxing Review radio show. My name is Aaron Snowell, and they call me the Hall of Fame trainer of champions. And we travel the world for past, present, and future stars. Today, we're coming live from the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, which is their award dinner night here in St. Petersburg, Florida, at the Carlton Hotel. But we have a special guest on the World Boxing Review radio show, Malissa Smith. Let me tell you, welcome into the World Boxing Review radio show, who's a book writer and she's publishing and all that. Come on, Melissa, welcome into the World Boxing Review radio show.
Oh, thank you so much, Aaron, and a shout out to all the champions who are being honored tonight in Florida. I know the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame it has a long, brilliant legacy, including inducting Barbara Buttrick, who is, the queen of boxing, as far as I'm concerned. And in terms of the post-war era, she really changed the face of what women could do in boxing. So it's a real honor to talk to you today, Aaron.
Oh, yes, it is. Melissa, how many books do you have you written or published or a part of?
Sure. So my first book was A History of Women's Boxing. I published that 10 years ago in 2014. It was published by Rowman and Littlefield Publishers. And it took a look at the history of the sport for 300 years. Believe it or not, women started boxing in the 1720s, right alongside men. And when the first real prize fighting started in England or in London with a man named James Figg. And then I wrote about the sport through the Olympics in 2012. So it was quite a long mark. My newest book is called The Promise of Women's Boxing, A Momentous New Era for the Sweet Science. And it looks at what happened for women in boxing from, the day after the Olympics to now. Literally, I even snuck in the fact that Amanda Serrano was fighting 3x12. Called my editor. I said, "Hey, I got to add a paragraph. This is amazing." So it really goes in depth into that era in the last 10 years, 12 years.
Well, there's been so many great women in the sport of boxing, and not just boxers themselves, but people with different organizations that stood on the forefront of being pioneers to boxing in men's boxing and carrying it over into women's boxing. For this era, one main person is Jill Diamond. Yes. Jill Diamond's a Jewish president and secretary of the WBC, used to be president of women's boxing. But Jill made it a conscious effort to bring women's boxing on the forefront of what we see for the WBC. I see Gleason's, Jill Diamond was there with you just a week or so ago, promoting your book with you in Gleason's gym. Talk a little bit about that and Jill Diamond and how that all came about in Gleason's.
So I first met Jill Diamond in when I was writing my first book. I started to write it in 2012. It was published in 2014, and I got to know her a little bit through Sue Fox. You want to talk about pioneers for the women's boxing side. Sue Fox was a fighter in the 70s and then started the Women's Boxing Archive Network, which is the glue, if you will, of women's boxing these last 25 years in terms of the internet. Jill Diamond is just really a stellar supporter for women in the sport all over the world. She has raised the hands of I don't know how countless women in the ring, whether as prospects or champions such as Alicia Ashley. Anyway, so I've known her these last 10 years, since 2014. She was a big supporter of my second book, The Promise of Women's Boxing. She sat for interviews with me so I could get her perspective on such things as, where is boxing going? The 2 versus 3 minute round controversy, the frustrations of getting women onto boxing cards. And then when the book was published, she was just so precious to me to come and give me an award and to present me with a letter from the president of the World Boxing Council, Maurizio Suleiman, thanking me for my efforts in writing the book. I should also add that I do work with the WBC. I work on their rankings committee and on a monthly basis review the status of all the women in the various weight classes to give my opinion on where they should be. Do they rise up? Do they go lower? And so on. So I'm really appreciative of that support from the WBC and recognizing, my interest and my support for their sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Jill Diamond is an absolute jewel when it comes to boxing. She has the right heart. She has the right compassion for it. And, Jill Diamond, even with Mauricio's father, Jose Suleiman, during that era when she just start getting into that era, Jill Diamond with Jose, I mean, really worked for, very close to get the WBC cares in the early stage of that. Me and Jill, we did a lot of good stuff together with Jill and help get that up and to get it known where people now are recognizing that all around the world, and for her to be the part to help you promote your book. It's a dynamite thing, and what makes it good, 169 countries that the WBC represents around the world. It gives them a great viewpoint for your book. And I think your book's going to do very, very well with all the history that's a part of it, all the women's boxing that's in that book. And I want to thank you for writing that book, and congratulations to you to put that kind of effort together to write something like that, because it's risky with women's boxing, but women's boxing is coming along like women's sports are coming along. And one day when you look back, people are going to be looking at these books that you're writing on women's boxing and reading them and caring about all of that.
Yeah, well, we probably get 40, 50 books a year get published on boxing, and none of them are about women. I mean, there are a few. I'm not the only one. There are a few memoirs. We had Christy Martin wrote her brilliant memoir last year. Jane Couch, who was honored this year at the Boxing Hall of Fame, she published a memoir about 2 years ago. But in terms of a history book, there are 2, mine, and it saddens me because these are stories that are important to be told, because they not only talk about the perseverance and brilliance of fighters, but as you say, the larger story of the promoters who help them, the managers, the boxers themselves, how these things come to pass, and why these stories become a part of the larger arc of women's history. When a woman comes into a boxing ring, she's not coming in alone. She's coming in with everyone who ever supported her, but she's also coming in having worked all day, during camp, because there are very, 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 very few women that get the opportunity that their brothers in boxing get, to have support for camp, to have support for their training. They're all working full time, and many of them have families, they have children. So for them, it's not only their own pride in their ability to box, but it's also paying it forward to their own children, paying it forward to their sisters in the gym, to the younger girls that are coming up, and being able to be there to show that you can enter into a boxing ring. It is not a secret space for just one gender. Anyone who has skills and the temerity to climb through those ropes deserves to be there, if they're skilled and have can keep themselves safe, if you will, in the ring.
You're absolutely right about that. And what makes it so caring
I'm
about your
having
book
trouble hearing you.
in New York alone with women's boxing history, Jackie Tiawanda and
Yeah,
Lady
I don't
Taggart
want to.
Treem, when
Trimier,
they
yeah,
wouldn't
Lady
allow
Tiger.
women's boxing, yeah, Trim Yard, that are in now the International Boxing Hall of Fame in
Yes, they
Canastota.
do.
Uh, the pioneer work in the pathway that they laid down for women's boxing is just second to none. In order them to stand up when the time women were shamed or looked at, there was a saying. It was tough to watch guys with women bleeding in a bucket, and it was tough for men back then, and there was a lot of bigotry, a lot of prejudice that went along with them. But for them to take the risk to sue the athletic commission and then
Yep.
get a victory in court in the early 70s, boy, oh boy, for women's boxing, for them to get a license. I mean, that's something.
It's
And then,
huge.
as you well know, the backlash that comes along with all of that, with Jackie Tiawanda and what they did. Oh, she didn't fight enough. She didn't have the credentials. She really wasn't a fighter. I said, well, if she didn't fight or whatever, you know about her, don't you? And you know that she existed. But all of that was part of all the bigotry and the civil rights stuff that when they're trying to hold people down and to hold people back, all of the naysayers, the doomsayers, all of that goes a part of it. And explain a little bit about that uh, for women's
Sure.
history.
So in 1975, Jackie Tanawanda and Lady Tiger, Marion Trimier, were approached by Madison Square Garden, thought, hey, maybe we'll put women on a boxing card. So they were encouraged to get boxing licenses. And they did. And they applied. It was covered in the press. Floyd Patterson was actually the head commissioner for the New York State Athletic Commission at the time. And they said, oh, hell no, you are not. We are not giving licenses to women. So Jackie Tanawanda, whose real name was Jackie Garrett, she sued. She got an attorney. She reached out to women's rights groups. She got an attorney and she won her case, which was giving her the right to sue on the basis of civil rights. Now, you have to go back a little. In 1964, when President Johnson passed the legislation for civil rights, he added in like a one-line sentence of like, and women too.
Yeah.
Right. And that one line meant that women had to be, you could not discriminate against women for federal employment. That by 1975, that had really expanded so that you could not deny women employment, period. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when you'd look in the want ads in the newspaper, you'd say, help wanted women, help wanted men, right? So all of that had to go away. It was just, hey, how are you? Nice to see you. Anyway, you just had to help wanted, right? So when Jackie Tanawanda sued, it was at that era where you could just say help wanted. So she won that right. The suit got dropped for various reasons. And then 2 years later, Kathy, another fighter, picked it up and based on that original court case, won the right. And then they all got licensed in 1978. But other women had sued in other states, in Nevada, and other places. And by that point, by the like 77, 78, the states just said, oh, forget it. We're going to lose. So don't even bother trying to litigate, because they're going to lose these cases. Where they kept women down, however, was in the amateurs. Women did not win the right to fight in the amateurs to 1993. So it was another 20 years from when, these women first started to sue to fight professionally in the early 70s for women to earn the right to fight in the amateurs. And that took to the 1990s. And that's crazy. The other thing I will add about Lady Tiger went on to become a professional fighter. She wasn't able to really fight in New York, so she fought out in California. She fought on all women's cards in California. I mean, she was really a force to be reckoned with. But by the early 80s, it just fell off. It just died. It didn't exist anymore. And Lady Tiger said, oh, hell no, I'm going to do something about this. And she went on a hunger strike in the mid 1980s to say, this isn't right. I want to, in the best tradition of labor leaders, because she was a labor leader. She's saying, hey, women have a right to earn a living as a boxer. They have the right to be pros. So she went on a hunger strike for a month. And she finally, she dogged on King. She dog fights. It was really just so impressive and so important to boxing. And yet people just like, oh, who's Lady Tiger? Lady Tiger is the shit. I mean, she is it.
Yes, she is.
And, I have been honored to get to know her. We laugh because we went to the same high school at the same time in New York City, which is crazy. Didn't know each other, but we're about the same age. So, we connect because of that. And I had the honor of sitting with her for a little while when Katie Taylor fought Amanda Serrano at Madison Square Garden. Lady Tiger had been inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame by then. She as a pioneer, trailblazer, and she had a box at the Madison Square Garden, which they gave to her, which was really special because she's wheelchair bound now. And to be with her for part of that event and get her perspective and to see her marvel at there these women are, the main event in the main arena in the house of Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, and then you have Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano at the same level of fighting. No mistake about that. Their skill level is beyond. They are truly elite fighters, and to be with her, to watch her face this smile on her face and a wistful feeling of, oh my God, what could have been if we had been accepted? Because those women back then were just as skilled, had just as much heart, and loved boxing just as much. So the fact that it finally, 40 years later,
it has arrived with that. Well, let me pull your coattail to something, and you probably know this. Jackie Tiawanda, her nickname was the female Ali.
Yep.
And she used to be in Deer Lake at Ali's training camp in Deer Lake.
Yep.
When I was a young, inspiring trainer at the time, Jackie was there, and none of the guys would work with her, help train or anything. And Jackie Tiawanda, I used to train at Ali's camp in Deer Lake, Pennsylvania.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, in the
awesome.
early 70s.
Yep.
So I knew Jackie, and people said this thing about civil rights. Most of us with civil rights and stuff that were around Muhammad Ali, because he preached it and taught it so much.
Absolutely.
So he dropped seeds of standing up and fighting and persevering on all of us that were around him. And his influence on Jackie Tiawanda for her to stand up like that was part of that. He had influence in a part of the naysayers that people want to say to try to discredit Jackie Tiawanda, that she was never around Muhammad Ali. She never trained. And like I tell them, I said, that's an absolute lie. And how do I know? Because I was there. I seen her. I worked with her.
And she trained at Gleason's too when they were down on 30th Street. And
absolutely.
She was training at Gleason's on 30th Street. No question. I have
so all of those kind of things are the backlash for standing up, fighting for people's rights. You get backlash like that. You get the rumor mill of negativity trying to discredit you and all the accomplishments that you do for standing up for making great things happen. But I want to say one thing is that Jill Diamond and Ed Brophy and them up at the International, they stood up, and regardless of the heat they got, they inducted Jackie Taiwana and Lady Trim and them, and what an honor to see that happen. I was up there for that. I came up there especially for that, and to see them doing that. I'm glad that these type of things that you're talking about are in the book, and there's more women. I'll tell you, Hiawatha Knight, who was the boxing commissioner of Michigan, who ended up becoming the president of the IBF early in the late 70s, early 80s. She was something that should be credited because she was doing men's sports. She just happened to be a woman standing up in her earlier days. Miriam Muhammad, who was president of the IBF at one time after Hiawatha Knight, Bob Lee, with all of that, Miriam Muhammad became president. And then from Derbyshire, the women's boxing judges, women like Lynn Carter of Philadelphia, who's been a boxing judge, judging men's sports, and now judging referees. Like you said, I think,
Sparkle Lee.
Sparkle Lee was at your event.
These are important people.
Talk about that.
Well, look, start even as back in, I wrote about a woman in 1916 became the manager for her two brothers. She was full Cherokee out of Oklahoma, and she had two brothers, and she managed them all throughout the war and into the early 1920s. She was still getting rid of it. So women have always been involved. We lose track of it, but they've always been involved. We had Belle Martell out in California. She and her husband were in vaudeville. What they saw vaudeville wasn't going to happen. They moved to LA, and her husband had always been involved in amateur boxing. So they started to manage amateur boxing. They started to run the Golden Gloves. She became the first licensed announcer in California. And then she became a referee in the around 1940-ish. And she was successful. She was good at it. And people were so angry that she was a referee for men's fights. The California Commission passed a rule that said referees could only be a referee for their own gender. And since women weren't allowed to box in California, she could no longer act as a referee. So the level of prejudice against women in the sport is deep, and yet women continue to persevere. You have Barbara Buttrick, who started boxing in England in the 1940s. She went to give just an exhibition on a stage, and the British Boxing Board of Control threatened to throw everyone in prison, including the owner of the theater, if they let her go on with an exhibition bout. So the only way she could earn a living was in carnivals, literally in carnivals and tents.
Right.
And they would have a boxing ring, and people would come in, and you'd win X amount of money if you defeated a boxer after 4 rounds. And she was a fighter in that era. She came to America. She started boxing in America in the 1950s. And believe it or not, there were these little pockets of boxing in the early 50s. Some of it was regular sponsor box. Some of it was pure boxing. And
and a lot of it was smokers. Back in that era, they did smokers. Smoker fights. And don't forget that there was a woman in New Jersey that had a training camp where Joe Louis and all of those great fighters of that era trained in that training camp in New Jersey. The list is long, fine, but distinguished. It's a historical, but a woman owned it and ran it in New Jersey.
Women,
so.
Yeah, you had women running that, managing their family members. You had women as announcers, and then of course, you had Eileen Eaton, who ran boxing in Los Angeles. Look, we just recognized Jackie Callan this year at Canastota. I mean, she's just one of the best boxing managers out there, But and mostly had been, and didn't really have women that she supported. But it is an important story, and there are levels to it. There are fighters who were able to have sort of catch more of the imagination, and there may have been racial issues associated with that as well. If people always like, if it's a blonde, pretty girl, they'll follow her. But if it's a woman who is more masculine facing or a darker shade, they're not necessarily interested. So we've also had to overcome prejudices that run deep against alternative lifestyles or just racial issues. So boxing is not immune from that. We see it on the men's side. It has also existed on the women's side of the sport at all levels, which is something that we work towards overcoming. And it's people like Jill Diamond that are so critical to that because of the work that she does with WBC Cares.
Absolutely. Now, you've written a couple books. We want to know where people can purchase these books on women's boxing. How can they get it? And when are you having a book signing, another book signing somewhere, so we can get people out there in order to get their books signed? Come on with it, Melissa.
So first of all, you can find my books on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, wherever you buy your books online. It's The Promise of Women's Boxing, Momentous New Era for the Sweet Science. That's my newest book, or A History of Women's Boxing. I just had my huge big party at Gleason's Gym last Saturday. I'm still overwhelmed with emotion for the brilliance of that. The thing I'm most proud of is that I had Alicia Ashley, Ronica Jeffrey, Melissa St. Ville, and Sparkle Lee, the great New York State referee, on a panel with me, and my moderator, Raquel Cepeda, who's a great filmmaker and an amateur boxer herself. And we talked about, has the promise been made? And the answer is, well, a little bit, but there's so much more to go. So I was just honored to have those remarkable women with me at the book launch at Gleason's. We're not sure yet what my next event is going to be. It'll take a few weeks. So
okay,
I'll have something going in the fall at another boxing gym for sure.
Oh, well, hold on. Maybe we can get Bob Alexander here, Vice President of the Florida Hall of Fame, right here, Melissa, to congratulate you on your new book.
Hey, Bob.
Alexander, there he goes.
How are you?
This is Melissa, her new women's boxing. This is her second one.
Nice. That's great.
Hey,
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I was telling Aaron how, y'all were like among the first to recognize Barbara Buttrick. You were the first Hall of Fame to give
She
her
was in my class when I was inducted. She was in the 2010 class with me.
Yeah,
very, very amazing lady.
Amazing lady, and still going at 94, believe it or not. Because I speak to Jimmy Finn every so often, and he and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me that she's doing well, and so that's amazing because she's back in England now. But she is so pivotal to the history of the sport, and we recognized her. We also had our first International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame event in Florida, down in Fort Lauderdale. The first 2 years we did that in 2014 and 2015. So that was really fun.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, well, look, Melissa, you're doing such a great job, and thank you, Bob. Bob Alexander is he is the Vice President of the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. To have him on his big day here for the inductees of 2024 to come on and congratulate you. I mean, it shows you the type of work. It's big on what you're doing. They like it, what you're doing, and man, so I just heard somebody mention Don King. Yeah, Don King gave Christy Martin her start when everybody told him don't do it. Women boxing don't work. You know, all of that negativity that goes along with being a female athlete. Don King, he stood up and represented. He said, look, we're going to have them on there, have her, and she's going to fight. Showtime denied it. They didn't want to do equal pay and stuff like that. But Christy Martin helped lift the sport up, second to none. And I'll tell you another one, Laila Ali, the only undefeated women's fighter to be inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. And boy, is that to be the daughter of Muhammad Ali. Boy, is that saying something.
Can you imagine how brilliant that? I mean, I had tears in my eyes when I watched that. To think that this was the first boxing daughter to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, where her father was in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that just that she was able to accomplish that alongside her dad. You know, to know that they both have their rings, that they both have their fists, you know, in bronze.
Yeah. And you think about Joe Frazier's daughter, Jackie Frazier, who is a judge. She's a living judge in Pennsylvania.
She was an attorney when she fought her in 2001. I mean,
absolutely,
great fight. And I got to tell you something. In terms of history, that was the first pay-per-view for women leading. There wasn't another one till Clarissa Shields did it. Okay? That's how long it took for another women's card to be at the top of a pay-per-view. So crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And we do have great boxers like Clarissa Shields.
If we go, let's see if we can get somebody. Hey, Mr. Schiffman, can you come? I want you to come on the show for 1 second. As the guys are coming in here, part of the induction ceremonies here, we're trying to get these guys. Look, we're going to bring the Tim Schiffman, who's going in the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, who is the commissioner of Florida. Tim, this is nice who just did her amazing book on women's boxing. So we wanted to hear straight from the commissioner what he feels about women's boxing.
Women's boxing is at its highest level as it's ever been, and it's continuing to rise. And I wish them the best, and I hope they continue to fight, because when women come to fight, they come to fight. There ain't no playing, they're taking care of business, and that's what the sport is about.
Yeah, and you got some great stuff going on, you know, with Most Valuable Promotions running their fights through and getting some great women's bouts happening. So
yes,
that's
they
really
do.
Terrific to see boxing back in Florida, you know, at the big time boxing back in Florida.
Yes, we appreciate it. We love our promoters, and we think this is a great place to come and do combative sports, particularly boxing. I mean, we love it.
I commend you for saying yes to 12x3. That was Florida, you know, where Amanda Serrano had her 12x3 fight, you know, so that's to you, and say thank you for recognizing that elite women's boxing can fight 12x3 if they want to, if they're ready for it, and if everybody agrees to it, if the fighters agree to it. And the fact that you all supported it is huge for the sport and for the future of what women can achieve. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And we love to have fights in Florida, and I think that we're just as competitive as any other state, and we try to take care of our fighters, and we're happy to have sports here. Love it.
Plus, your Team Combat League is doing very well.
Yes, they keep us busy, but you know, you got to have a good team. So that is definitely one of the reasons why we do what we do.
Well, Tim, I know you're busy because you're getting inducted, not just the commissioner, you're being inducted here the night the award dinner and stuff is here. But I just want to thank you for coming on the World Boxing Review radio show for Malissa Smith with her new book on women's boxing, to congratulate her Thank you for stopping by. It shows what
And
kind
I'm
of
gonna go
commission
get
you
your
are.
book too. Thank you.
It's the promise of women's boxing, a momentous new era for the sweet science, and congratulations to you for being inducted tonight. Awesome.
And thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next, well, we got some guests for you, Melissa, with this new book you got out here to congratulate you. We got the president of Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame, no other than the Hawker, Craig Hawk. This is
You know,
Melissa Smith.
Hi, Melissa.
Indiana
Pleasure to
boxing.
meet you.
Pleasure to
Pleasure to
meet
meet
you. You know, most people don't know how important that little bit of time that Indiana women's boxing was the king. You know, you had fighters like Joanne Hagan and so on, and they were boxing out of South Bend, Indiana in the early 1950s, and they were winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. And it's just like this little stitch of time when the women boxing out of South Bend were winning it all. So, you know, Indiana has a beautiful history of the sport, and in particular, the place of women in Indiana is really solid and brilliant. So I think.
Well, he's inducted some of the women in the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. Can you name some of them?
Eva Jones Young and Christy Martin have been inducted in the Indiana.
Yeah, well, Eva Jones Young is fabulous. We did her at the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame last year. She's 2 years ago. She's brilliant. Yeah.
The thing about this, well, and then the WBC from Gary, Indiana, is the
Right.
What's her name? Mary McGee.
Mary
Mary
McGee.
Mary McGee.
Mary
is awesome.
McGee is a legit WBC world champion. Marvin
Absolutely.
Johnson is a legit WBC world champion. JB Williams is a legit WBC world champion. So I give those guys credit that they win the actual belts, and you know that I give those guys credit.
No,
And
no.
Mary
and
McGee.
Dave Mitchell, Mary McGee is amazing.
Mary
fighter.
McGee
She is
would be the face
and
of Indiana for sure.
not only that, but she did a female. You know, she did a card where she had her boxing sisters on that card back. Just
Great,
after COVID.
great stuff. Great stuff. Great people.
fighter.
We try to do be as positive as we can. We try to give us, as much equal love as you can. But there's only one person from Indiana to fight in the Olympics. 1972 bronze medal winner Marvin Johnson. Now, Layman was on Marv, and there's been guys that fight on the team, but they did not compete in the Olympics. So,
no.
like the Pan Am Games was Layman Brewster, and the
Right.
Marvin is a 1972 bronze medal winner. And here's the thing: in 1978, he has to fight the 1972 gold medal winner in the Olympics at 178. Marvin was at 165, and he goes over and knocks out Matt Parloff for the WBC light heavyweight world championship. That's not easy to do, is it, Aaron?
No, it's not
No.
easy. And
No,
let me tell
we
you,
might knock
for
out
Indiana,
Jason and-
because it's out there in the Central America and United States. It's tough to get visibility. You know, great matchmakers like Fred Burns, Midwest guys that send fighters from all over the world from Gary, Indiana. He did fights for club fights and their amateur programs with the Indiana Black Expo. It exposed and gave a lot of fighters an opportunity where they couldn't get in other states. They could get Indiana. But we're talking about Melissa Smith's great books that she's writing on women's boxing, and Indiana definitely supports equal rights,
Yes, we do,
fighting
Melissa.
for the people.
No.
And I think Craig, you want to congratulate her on this great book she wrote?
Yeah, congratulations, Melissa, from the
Thank you
Indiana
so
Boxing
much.
Hall of Fame. Thank you for your
Thank
hard
you.
work. Thanks for your, not many people appreciate boxing at the levels that many people have achieved or try to achieve. And that's why we're here today to congratulate you. Thank you, Melissa.
Well, I thank you so much, and I hope you have a great time today in Florida. And it's great to see you supporting Florida and states supporting states in these important opportunities. So I think it's great. And as I said, one of the best things that I wrote about in my first book, A History of Women's Boxing, was that about 5 or 6 years of brilliant women's boxing that came out of South Bend. It remains this really wonderful pearl of opportunity that women had to really showcase themselves as brilliant fighters.
Yeah, we're go next year. We're going to have to bring you out there, or see if you can get out there to the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame to see be a part of the festivities. Jose Suleiman was is inducted in there.
Yeah.
WBC
President, yeah. So
We're going to put them all in there. The WBC belongs in there. It's been around since 1963.
Oh no.
WBA belongs in there. 1921. IBF
Yep.
1983. WBO 1988. They deserve to be in there because we are fighting for their belts.
No,
Right?
and they, when
Absolutely.
you're talking about this 4-belt era, you see what the fighters can achieve as undisputed fighters and the opportunities that are offered to them. So it's really it is a very exciting time in boxing, and at the same time, it's got its issues, as we all know. It's got its problems.
Well, absolutely.
But
Well, look, hey, Craig, we don't want to take up too much to your time because we're getting ready to close. You got to do something. But look,
Yeah.
it's been a great morning. Thank you,
Oh,
Craig.
thank you.
Indiana Boxing Hall of
Craig.
Fame President Craig Hawk, that was just on. So, hey, everybody wants to congratulate you on your book. So it shows the importance when anytime that you have the commissioner of the state, the vice president of the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, president of Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame, come and congratulate you. What you're doing is big, it's needed, and we want you to keep up the good work. In closing, anything else you want to say?
Well, I just want to thank you, Aaron, for giving me this platform and this opportunity to talk about the thing I love, which is supporting women in their endeavors in the sport, whether it's as managers or referees or judges or commissioners, or most importantly, as fighters. That's really where my heart is. And I'm here to tell their stories, to honor them, and to plead for their right for equity and fairness in the ring, whether it's fairness in terms of how they fight, where they fight, the promotional opportunities, and most importantly, to get them pay equity, which they still don't have. There may be a few fighters that can earn a decent living, but everybody else still has to work all day long.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's not as tough as it was, but it's not as good as it's going to get. And dreams only come true that if you believe that they do. We have a lot of people dreaming, and we got a lot of hope now with you with this book. And as hard as Jill Diamond works on women's boxing, she's always busier than a one-legged dog and a four-legged dog in a butt whooping contest. But Jill Diamond is indeed awesome. Something special in what she does work, and what you're doing, it's well needed. Melissa, we want to thank you for coming on the World Boxing Review radio show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you very much and for the platform. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, my name is Aaron Snowell. They call me the Hall of Fame Trainer of Champions. As we travel the world for past, present, and future stars. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming on.